Welcome to Ephemeraphiles by Tomi, and I wanted to show you how I did the cover of my Wild Hare Kit challenge. This right here. And I'm going to show you starting with the gesso and going all the way to the top as much as I can, because I decided to make a pocket for the inside out of this cardboard that was part of the packaging. And you'll see this little slanted slit, that's hard to say, that was already in the packaging. It held the tabs in because it came in that large cardboard envelope. And I had two of those. So one of them I already cut to the size of a pocket. See how that slanted slit is there. And I cut this part off, I pulled this tape off. I'm going to use those if I can figure out how. And then I had these pieces of cardboard. This was to make it shorter. These are layers that I peeled off of the back to make the card a little thinner. And what I do is I take my fingernails. Sometimes my fingernails don't work though, and I have to get something else. But I just start peeling back. And I peel that off. I can use those on journaling cards and just on pages when I'm making collage and things like that. But this will help to make this less thick and less weighty in the book. Plus, by taking off that outer layer of the smooth cardboard, it gives this piece a little, what they call, tooth. And that means that it's something for the paint or the gesso or whatever it is that you're trying to apply, sometimes glue. It gives it a rougher area for it to grab onto, because it actually creates a little more surface area. Even though it may not feel like it's rough and bumpy, because it's rough and bumpy, it gives it a little bit more surface area to grab onto. I'm going to get my little razor knife here and see if I can't get that next one started, because like I said, I do want this as thin as I can get it without making it too weak to hold a journal card or a tag or whatever it is that I'm going to put into this pocket. So those little tiny fuzzy pieces I'm probably not going to use. But there I have a layer that I have taken off. I got a set of these 3 little razor blade holders, including the blades at the Dollar Tree. And I've had them for years and I use them a lot. So there it is. I could probably peel some more off the back of this too. I won't make you watch me that. I will jump forward to when I am done peeling this. Okay, so this was unexpected. Somehow I managed to peel it right in half, which gave me 2 almost cardstock weight pockets. Now this one's really thin where I had already peeled some pieces, but I can probably put a little collage there or something to strengthen that. And now I have 2 of these pockets. So I will gesso both of them. I'll do a different angle on each one. So now it's got the tooth, and it especially has the tooth on the sides that were torn apart. So I think that I'll turn that over and use this part. They were together like that, and I was able to separate them. I like this texture. I think it's going to be a good background. Now, gesso goes a long way. You don't need a lot when you're doing this. About a pea-size blob on your finger. And then I put it in the center and work my way out. I put it in the center of where I want my gesso to be. So if I just wanted to gesso a small portion, I would start in the center of that small portion. because then you're not trying to fade from one side to the other. If it fades out towards the edges, that's not such a bad deal. I kind of like that look of the feathering out, because then it doesn't look like you just glopped some stuff on there. It looks like you did it on purpose. And I feather it out, and actually your fingers are going to leave a little texture of their own on there. Probably not enough so that anybody could pick up a fingerprint if you're worried about that. I don't know why you would be worried about that, but you know, excuse me, I still have the sniffles today. I'm getting my medicine for my sinus infection this afternoon. I'm waiting for the pharmacy to call me and tell me that it's done. But see how I just feather that out? Can you see that there's not really an edge right there? It just feathers out. There's not really a beginning and an ending where you can just say, oh, that stops right there. It's not like a stencil where you want to have the edges showing. And then after you get this layer on, you want to make sure and let it dry. And I'm going to let it dry before I go on to the next step. The next step will be getting my Distress Oxides out and pouncing with my sponge tool to add layers of color. There, I think I need a little bit more to go in toward that slot there. There we go. And it's just a very thin layer of gesso. Make sure that if you're using a tool other than your finger, like if you're using a brush or a sponge, you want to wash that gesso out pretty quickly after you use it. If you get it on your table, you want to wipe it up fairly quickly, because gesso doesn't leave after it gets dry. Not very easily anyway. Now, if I was just on my glass tabletop, I wouldn't worry so much, because I would just use my razor tool and scrape it up. Scrape it off, if my mouth will work. And this is one of my baby wipes that I use to stamp off on. And I keep it in this little jar. And I pull it out when I need it. And then that goes into my fibers area for use. So I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll come back and we will add some color. Okay, so my gesso is completely dry now, and it is time to pull out the colors that we want to use. Now, I have mentioned before that I have 19 colors that I pulled out to go with this kit. Let me scoot some things out of the way here. These are all the colors, other than the gesso, which I don't know that that counts as a color, except for it is white, and I don't have a white ink. These, oh my goodness, another stack. These are all the colors of ink that I am using in this journal. It's a very colorful journal. I'm not going to use all of these on these tags. I'm just going to pick a couple, because I know that most of my pages have patterns. The ones that I am going to put these pockets on definitely have patterns. So I'm just going to keep it to 2, maybe 3 colors on each of the pockets, because then I'll have to find a page that matches. And I know that I don't want to use the gray or the black or the brown. I kept saying vintage photo in another video, and it's actually brushed corduroy. I prefer the brushed corduroy whenever I'm aging pages, just because I feel it's a closer match. That and antique linen are a closer match to the actual aged pages. So let's see. Let's get a triad going. Let's go with the 3. So a triad would be your 3 primary colors, which are red, yellow, blue. Or you could go between them and go with the green, orange, purple. or even between them, and go with a yellowish green and a, let's see, would it be a reddish purple, or yes, reddish purple and a reddish orange. Is that right? I don't know, but you'll want 3 that are equidistant on the color wheel, and you can look up color wheels all over the internet. So I am going to try not to make them horribly clashy either. So I think that for one of them, I will use the worn lipstick and the peacock feathers. Let's see. And then I need a yellowish one. Do I want scattered straw? Do I want, let's do the wild honey. That's kind of a goldish yellow. So there's one of them. I'll stack those together now. What do I want on the other one? I think I want a purple. We'll go with seedless preserves on that one. And let's see. Let's do a chipped sapphire. And these are actually going to be analogous, which means that they're touching on the color wheel. If I go with purple, pink, and blue, those would be analogous. So I think I'll do those 3 together on the other one. And I'll probably make more pockets using these colors. These won't be the only mixtures that I have. Right now I'm trying to show you what I did on the cover that didn't get recorded. So let's do this one first. And I start with a stamping off paper and my wipe ready at the go. And I start with the darkest or the lightest one first, and I believe that's going to be the picked raspberry. And I'll just take my sponge and I'll dab, and it's not going to pick up a whole lot of ink, which is a good thing because you want it to slowly work together. And I do know that I'll want to put more of my lightest color on because the darker colors that I'm going to add will cover up a lot of that lightest color. So I want to make sure that I've got some of it showing all over so that no matter where I decide to put the other colors, it's still going to show. And then I'll stamp that off over here on this paper. And then I'll get my wet wipe. And I will stamp off the rest of it until no more ink shows. There we go, that's pretty good. It still looks pink on the end, but it'll be okay. I'll put this back in the jar so it doesn't dry out. Now, the next one I'll use will be the seedless preserves. And again, you can see that I use my lid for stamping off with my makeup brushes that we use. I just stamp that off in there. It also gives me a little bit of extra ink there in the top that I can use as well. Now this one will not go all over the place, but in order for it to show over the pink, I will have to stamp a little harder. And you can scrub a little bit as well, because right now you're just trying to get some color on it. And then again with the cleaning process. And I keep my stamping off papers because lots of times I can use them again in the next project. Here is another one that I've been stamping off on so far in this project. And I will probably use those as well, since they have become a part of the process of making this particular journal. My Wild Hare Kit challenge. Okay. We'll put the lid back on the seedless preserves, and then we'll pull out our chipped sapphire. And this one I'm going to put on a little more sparingly. I just need some accents of the blue. Now, I will probably go and do another step on these pockets just to add a little more interest. I will probably get my Dilutions sprays out. There. I like that one. I think that's good, just like that. Let's see my Stampin' Off paper. The lid on the ink. And clean off my sponge. I don't know. I think that I got this in a freebie bag. So I don't know who makes it. It's not the greatest thing. And maybe there's different ways of using it that I'm not using it. But it's working for this. It's working for me right now. Okay, so there's that stack. I'll move these over to the side. Set that aside to dry, which it's pretty much dry anyway, right now, by now. Now this one will probably be a little more colorful, but I am going to put you on pause so I can go wash out my sponge just to make sure I don't cross-contaminate my inks. Okay, let's move on to our second pocket. And we'll start with the Wild Honey. And I really like this color, but I don't know what it's going to do on the cardboard and gesso, so we'll find out. I'm not sure if I remember how it looked on the cover of the journal. And that is mostly covered up now. So I'm going to use this, and you don't just have to pounce. You can also use it to spread. And I like the way that the gesso kind of grabs some of the ink in spots, and where it just kind of fades out in other spots. And I really like that Wild Honey color. That's one of my favorite yellows that I have right now. I don't have all of the Distress inks. It seems like I have a lot. I do have a lot. I don't have them all. Actually, I don't really like them all. Because I have the colors that I want and the colors that I use the most. Now, when he comes out with new colors, which I think he comes out every year with new colors, then I'll probably find another one that I really, really like. But for now, I'm happy with my selection of inks. Okay, get some of this pink on here. I think this side is going to be a little more bright and cheery. The other one is a little bit more, let's see, I would say kind of romantic and dreamy because of the pink and the purple and the blue. I like that combination right there. I'm not going to put a whole lot of the peacock feathers on that because I do like that, but I do feel like it needs that third little touch of color on there just to brighten it up a little bit. I don't throw away my wipes either. I use them unless they're just plain ugly. Like if I've been using a lot of black and drab colors and the whole thing is just turned a black, brown, green, gross mess, I don't really use it again. So here we've got the peacock feathers. And like I said, I'm going to be a little bit more sparing with it. I just want to add a little bit here and there. Maybe right there. Yep. That works for me. And so that was the, let's see, second step on how I made my covers and how I'm making these pockets. I'm going to let those dry completely so that when I come back, I can do the rest of the decorating on here so that they look like the cover, or at least somewhat reminiscent of the color. Okay, so I pulled my book over so that I could do some comparison, and I see that I think I put the gesso on the book a whole lot thicker than I did on here. It was pretty thin on these two pieces, and so the ink that I used really covered up the white of the gesso, so it's not looking as much like the cover as it would have. I could add some more gesso onto it if I wanted more of the white showing, and if I wanted to, I would do that right now and then let it dry. I'm not going to do that though. I want to go ahead and get on with stamping. So the next thing that I did on the journal here is I used my Paisley foam stamp in different colors, and I just stamped them on here, and they work with the colors that are in the cummerbund. That's how I chose the colors that would go on there. So I will do the same for these. I will choose the color based on the individual pocket. And this is my stamp. This is, again, is my 32-cent stamp that I got a long time ago. And I need to decide which color I would like to put on each pocket. And I would like for it to stand out. So I need to have something that will stand out against the purple and the blue on that one, because I know it's going to be easy to find one to do on that. Yellow and pink and blue. And I may just have to go back and add some gesso to that particular pocket, because I really don't want to use black. And I think everything else is not going to show, unless maybe I could do the chipped sapphire. That would still be a subtle pocket, but that might work. So let's see what that does. Let's just try it out. What's the worst that could happen? As my friend Kevin says all the time. Let's go for it. What's the worst that could happen? Let's see. Set those elsewhere. I need to be able to get to them, but I need to set them elsewhere. So I am inking up my stamp, trying to make sure that I don't have lines, and sometimes that's hard. You've got to ink and ink and ink and ink until the lines kind of disappear, because you've got enough of a coating on there that there's no foam showing through. It does not have to be perfect, but I'd really prefer not to have the square or straight lines on the edges of the, or showing on the stamp from the edges of the ink pad. All right, so I've got this inked up, and I need to decide which way I want it to go, because I am going to lose part of it because of that slot, but it's actually just going to wrap around it. So I think that's where it's going, since that is where it dropped. How about that? Decision made. That was unexpected. Okay, that showed up a little bit, and when I put my other things around it, maybe it'll show up better. I'm going to see if maybe I can do a second stamp to get a little bit more of the pattern on there. We'll see what happens with that. Sometimes when you drop things, you just have to go with it. Ooh, I kind of like that. So maybe I could just try to fill in the rest right there with that little tail. Ooh, I really like that. Okay, that makes me happy. It's another thing to think about when you're choosing your background colors is if you're going to add something on the top, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to add something that can be seen. Especially if, like me, you weren't wanting to use black on that particular part, because you will be using black elsewhere. All right, so that stamp is pretty well cleaned off. Now when I pull out the baby wipe, we'll see that it's not as clean as it could be. So here we go. My husband just got home, so you're going to hear some background noises, but I'm happy to have him home. No complaints here. And when I'm cleaning it off, I'm actually arranging it because, like I said before, I can use these baby wipes again. If not in this journal, I can definitely use them in another. So there we go. That one is stamped off pretty well. We'll put it back into the jar to keep it moist. And then we'll pick a color for this one. This one we can use pretty much anything. And I'm thinking, we have so little of the peacock feathers, I think that's going to be the one I want to use. Sorry about my sniffles. I still have that sinus infection. I have to go pick up a prescription here shortly. Now this is exactly the same color as the foam stamp, so it's kind of hard to tell when I've got it all covered. But I think I've got it. Let's see. Let's go with, whoops, put the paper underneath. Let's go with this. We'll do it that way. Push down, push down, push down. Make sure everything gets into contact. Lift it up. Ooh, I like that. And then we will re-stamp. We'll get a second generation stamp out of this. It'll be just slightly lighter, but not a lot, because these foam stamps tend to hold on to the ink a little bit. So you may or may not be able to tell the difference between the first stamp and the second stamp. I like that too. I think that turned out well. So I'm going to let those dry, and then I'll be back with the next step. Okay, so these are dry, and we're ready for the next step, which when I did the cover was the clocks. And I did do those in black, just so that they would show up well against all the colorful background. So set that to the side again. I've already got my black soot out. I used the other set of my clock stamps on the cover, but I am going to use this other set that I got through wish.com. So I don't really have a brand name or anything on there. It just says store watch on the back. But since these are smaller clock faces, I'm going to use them on these smaller surfaces. Now this one is weird because you see how black that is, how that looks like a solid circle? That's almost how this stamps as well. I think that if I was going to use this one, I would use a white ink, which I have a white ink pad, but that's really not the look that I'm going for, so I'm not going to use that particular stamp, but I did want to show it to you. I do like this one with all of the gears, and this smaller pocket watch has the gears, and then this one's just a fancy scroll work. And I think that I'll use one on, I'll use one on here, and then I'll put two on the other pocket. And let me fiddle around and see what look I like the best. I don't know. I think maybe if I overlap those, I kind of like that look. Overlapping and just clearing that. And then this one, I don't mind if it overlaps the little slot there. Maybe I want this one over here instead. And we'll overlap those that way. That kind of fills up that little blanker space there. And then I'll do this one. I'll do this one over here. Yes, that's what I'll do. So since this one is just a single stamp, I'll go ahead and press my acrylic block down and get my stamping off paper ready. And I have been told time and time again, and I've seen it on YouTube videos and everything else, to take your ink pad to the stamp. Honestly, I don't know what the difference is, because for me it seems to work both ways. Maybe I'm just lucky. Could be that. But I don't want to teach you to do things the wrong way. So we'll do it the way that I'm told I'm supposed to. Now I need to locate the top of the clock. It's okay if it's a little off, but I don't want it to be upside down. Think. Yes. Oh, it helps if I put my stamping paper right there too, doesn't it? Okay, let's put it, let's go right here. And some of the edges will go off, and that's fine. I kind of like that look. We've got that. I do like that. So we'll set that one to the side. We'll stamp this off. And I actually don't have to go to the wipe for that one, because the black seems to stamp off really well from the acrylic inks. Let's see. And there's the top. We said that we were going to go right over here. And since I'm kind of overlapping them, I am going to angle it just a little bit. And I'm going to stamp off the page. That looks good. And then I'll clean off my stamp. And put that back. And then I'll do the same with the little pocket watch. And since the top of the pocket watch tells me where 12 o'clock is, that makes it a little bit easier to make sure I've got it turned in a direction that's not too wonky. It's okay if it's off a little bit. Like I said, you just don't want it to be upside down, or your 12 to be at your 4 or whatever. And I'm just going to put that right there. Ooh, I like that. That turned out well. I do like that. Stamp it off, stamp it off. I will pull out my wipe to clean off the ink that got onto my block. See, isn't that turning out so pretty already? So I'm going to be careful about where I choose to wipe off the ink with my wipe so that my black doesn't get everywhere. I don't mind to have a little bit on there, but I don't want it everywhere. All right, so there is the stamping of the clocks. The next thing that I did on the cover was, after that ink was dry, I went around the edges of the paisley stamp image, first with gold, or first with a rose gold marker, then with a gold marker, and then with another rose gold marker. And I'll show you real quick. And I will do that off camera. You'll notice that I stopped whenever I reached a clock face. And if I met something else in the middle, I bounced off of it. I don't know if you understand, like right here, where the gold ended up meeting in the middle, I stopped my rose gold at that intersection and then came down again. I hope you understand that. I will do that off camera, and then I will come back and show you what it looks like after that part is done. All right, so I traced around all of the bumps on the paisley prints 3 times, rose gold, and then rose gold. Now I am going to go through, and on my cover, the next thing I did was I made dots that followed all of the bumps all the way around, except for inside the clock. Just like the bumps that were inside the clock didn't get colored, I do not follow with the gold on that either. And I will speed you up on this part so that you don't have to watch me go dot, 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 dot. All right, so those dots don't show up spectacularly well. They will add to the full effect once we get done. Then the next thing was I took my black micron pen and I'm just putting a dot in each of these, let's see, what will we call them? Indentations. And sometimes it will be right in the middle of a gold dot, and that's okay. Won't take very long because there aren't that many of them. So I'll go ahead and show you what I'm doing. Now, if you're using a micron pen and gesso, you'll want to make sure and get that scratch paper out so that you can clean off your pen every so often, because see how that was getting clogged up? You don't want to ruin your pens by doing that. And by cleaning it off, that will be very helpful. The next thing was that inside of the clocks, I went through, let's see, was this the next thing? Nope. Yes. Goodness gracious. I went through with my Wink of Stella, and I added sparkle just to the parts that were white inside, like that stripe and that stripe. But the Wink of Stella kept picking up the ink that was behind it as well. So it kind of made it a little swirly inside there, and I kind of like that effect, but I don't think that'll work so well on here because I don't have so much white showing. So I think what I will do, I will go in with my Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen, and this is the big fat one. Does it have a name? It doesn't have a name. And I'm going to very carefully add some white just to the interior of the clock face, just where it's not stamped. This is not easy. It's almost a little nerve-wracking. Let's see. Swerve there and swerve there. And I'm trying to do it without obliterating any of the stamp, which is also not easy. So it won't be a complete fill-in, but it'll be enough white so that my Wink of Stella will work on the image. And I don't think I'm going to go inside the little bitty clocks because I think that would just be asking for trouble. Let's see, there's more white there. Getting there, folks, getting there. We'll see what happens with that. I think that that helps to give a little bit more white background on that. I'm at least going to try it on the inside of this clock face here. Maybe. See, that's not part of the foam stamp, so that should be white-ish. I will definitely have to clean off my pen tip after this, because I can already tell that I am picking up a lot of ink. But it's not really white, it's actually acting more like a light pink. Okay, I think that I'm safe to kind of go out of the clock face on this, or not the clock face, with that little inner dial, because there's not that much of the non-foam stamp out here on this side. And we'll see what happens. I will be sure to clean off my pen, my marker, because it's supposed to be white, and I'd like for it to stay white. Let's see, there's a little sweep right there. Okay, that's all I'm going to do on there. And get my scratch paper out. Let's see, I did not put all the black dots in. You'll find that in these interior lines and in the inside of that little swoop, I made dots to correspond with the dots on the outside. So let's go ahead and do that part real quick before I forget. Let's see, and my dots ended at the middle of the second circle. And they're about this far apart. This one with its color scheme is so subtle that sometimes it's hard to see my design. And let's see, this dot goes here, down here to the middle of that circle. I'm going to have to scratch off because once again I'm writing on gesso and on ink and all of that. Let's see, and this is going to start right about here. Okay, I believe that's all of the black. Now we move on to the other one. You'll see on here that I have used some sparkle pen to add accents. And I'm going to use the, these are glitter markers from American Crafts. This one is aquamarine. And how I did it on here, I put a dot in the middle of each of those circles. The first two circles. I actually did go all the way down on the circles, so they all get a dot. And around, yes, and I put a dot here on each of these little try things, but that one's covered up by a clock, so I don't need to do it over there. And I put a dot in each of the bumps. So there. And since this is the same color, you're going to see the sparkle, but you're not really going to see the color. And again, I'm not going inside the clock faces, just doing whatever's outside of the clock face. Now I chose to do my glitter marker. It says ink. I got these in a set of 3 at the Dollar Tree. And this is one that has not been primed. So I'm going to prime it and then I'll come right back. Now I can use this one. When you first buy these, the tip is white. You have to do the pouncing thing on there to get the ink down into the pad. So here we go. We put a dot inside each of the bumps. That blue is shining up really well against that purple on the paisley pattern. That's really, really pretty. I am a glitter girl. I cannot help myself. Okay, let's see. Oh, I have a spot over here where I didn't do any of the tracing for the colors. So I'll just do that real quick and you can watch that layering. I simply went around the bumps with the rose gold. And then the gold. And then the rose gold again. Now I can continue with my blue because right there are 2 bumps that need dots. Let's see. And then I think I only have one of those that is showing. So that dot looks kind of random, but it actually follows the pattern. Okay, now I am going to let all that glittery stuff dry and I'm going to let the white marker that I did inside of the clock faces dry, and then I'll be right back. Okay, those are dry. They're still sparkly. I don't know if you can see the, let's see. I don't know if that's picking up the sparkles at all. Maybe on this one, since it's a little bit lighter. Oh well. You'll have to take my word for it that the sparkles are there. Here is my Wink of Stella. It's a brush pen, and it is basically a glitter glue. It looks like it would be white, but it's really just glitter. And I'm going to go over these parts that I went over with the white Pitt brush pen. No, it was just a pen, it wasn't a brush. And I'm going to add some shimmer to these clock faces where all of the white is. If you find that your glitter is turning a color, just come over here and wipe off your pen, wipe off your brush until it's clear again. Because it is a liquid and we have been working with things that are water-based, the oxides are water-based, it will pick up some of the color. And it does give it a kind of a cool effect. Oops, I didn't go over the white in those. Well, the inside of those clock faces needed some glitter too. And I'm just going to give it that little bit of extra oomph. You can see that it's not changing the color at all, except for when it drags through another color and starts to change the color of the glitter on the brush. And all you have to do is wipe off your brush on your extra paper, and then you'll have some glitter to use in another project because it's on this wipe off paper. So there is that one, and then I'll do the clock faces on this one. This one's going to pick up a lot of ink because there's a lot of color. So I shall be wiping off this brush rather frequently, like right now. The one thing about the Wink of Stella, you don't have to worry about if you go over something. It might smear it, so I guess you do have to worry a little bit about it. But usually, if you have an ink pad that is not water-based, like these, like I said, these Distress Oxides from Tim Holtz Ranger line, they are water-based. And they're an oxide. That's how come they have the reaction property to it that I like so much. But sometimes it's a little harder to work with just because it's not water resistant. Even after it's dry, it's not water resistant because the water, the liquid, the moisture, whatever the moisture is, even if it's an alcohol, it reactivates the color. And I really like that in a lot of applications because I have some specific things that I do that on purpose because that's what I want to happen. So there's that little bit of shimmer on the clock faces. And we'll let that dry and then we'll come back and do our last step. All right, ready for the last steps. Here's what it looks like so far. The light has changed. I still don't know if you can see the sparkles or not. You might be able to see some of them. There, I think you can pick up on some of it, and you can see in the clock face. Let's pick this one up. It may even show better. Yeah, you can see those sparkles if I hold it just right. So, it's not over the top glittery, but it's got that little extra pizzazz. This last step, I use the Clippings Sticker Book by Tim Holtz. It's not the same as the other clippings because it's got different phrases and such. But the other ones are good too. I just wanted to use this one because I hadn't used anything out of it yet before I started this. And I found a couple of phrases that I want to put on these two pocket fronts. So the stickers are not going to want to stick to all the gesso and the ink and the glitter pens and everything. So you're going to need to glue them on. Even though they are stickers, they won't be sticky enough. So I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac. And I love these tweezers. And if I can find the link, I found it before, I will link that below, because number one, they're orange. And number two, I like the way that they're curved and they've got the fatter handle here. It just makes it really easy to work with. So I am going to put this phrase, these two phrases together, and I am going to put the bottom part there and then the top part just above it. So I'm going to place the bottom part first so I can get my distance from the bottom correct. And I'm just going to put a thin line of glue here. You don't want too much because it's a thin strip. And you don't want it oozing out the side. Of course, it doesn't help if my Fabri-Tac bottle is almost empty. And clumpy on top of that. Okay. The good thing about this is if you do get a clump or a little bit that leaks out from the side, you can take these tweezers or another pair of tweezers and you can just clean it off after it's dry. And I am going to go right across here with that. And I'll push it down with the tweezers because I don't want to take a chance of smearing any of the ink on there by having it touch my thumb or my finger. And then I'll take the other part of the phrase that I decided to put together. It doesn't create a poem like I did on the front, but it does create a thought. And I really liked how it went together. Now, some of the phrases in the Tim Holtz book may not lend themselves to putting together like this. They may just be standalones. But this one now says, "Let us imagine for a moment we are having the time of our lives." And I liked that. And I didn't want them to be quite aligned, so I'm going to shift that while I can so that it looks like it's on purpose, not lined up, instead of just crooked. And now I'm going to come and do this one and see, let's see, where I think I'll put that one there. Same thing, little bit of glue. Where did I say? Right there. Yes. Pushing that down. And I like that the phrases are different fonts too. It just gives a little bit of added interest without me having to do much with it. Sorry if that was out of frame, but I had to get it up to my nose. Now this one I do want to look aligned. So I'm going to work really hard at getting it level and even from each other. There we go. That works. And this one says, "Stars adorn the sky, the light of hope." And I have some little star stickers that I'm probably going to just sprinkle around that. I may make a little, I may follow like this line in with them. And then the last step to complete these the way that I completed the cover of the book is to take a micron pen or a Pro Art Fine Artist pen. I have that too, and I think actually this is what I used, although I said micron pen in the earlier part. And because this is going to drag and skip, there's a really good possibility that you might mark on the word on the word phrase. How do you like that? It just happened. And that happened when I was doing it on the cover as well. And so I went back and I did some messy outlining. And once again, you're going to have your scratch paper over here to clean off your tip. So I did some, good grief, now I'm doing a whole lot of it and I don't mean to. I did some messy outlining, some scratchy outlining, so that I'm not trying to be neat, because it's kind of almost impossible to be neat doing this. Same on the second part of the phrase. The one on the cover had 5 of them. That was not, whoops. See, I don't even have to try to make it look messy. It just happens, because I am apparently a messy mixed media artist, which is fine with me. Okay, so I have those 2 little marks. I'm actually going to kind of, on purpose, make a few smudges so that it's artsy fartsy, because I am an artsy fartsy person. Scratch, scratch, scratch. And we'll do the same thing on this one. Look, I did that one without any goofs. So you can make your mistakes look like they were on purpose. There we go. And so clean off that tip before you recap your marker. Make sure it's marking correctly. And now I come back with my white Pilot G2 pen. Now I got these in a set of 3, and I did not pay as much for them as the link that I put in the last video, because I think that I got them at Tuesday morning. It was a 3-pack. It had this and it had the gold and the silver, and I think that I paid $5. When I look online for them, they're like $11 and $12. So look around. You don't have to buy them online. Well, you might have to for a little bit, but... And then I just went back and scratched in some white as well. It doesn't show a whole lot, but it does give it just a little bit of added interest, I think. Because you don't really recognize that you're seeing it, but your eye sees it. You see the little white extra scribbles around there. It just adds a little interest and a little texture. I did take on the other one and went over my marks that I did for to balance out my boo-boo, just to lighten them up a little bit. It doesn't erase them, but it makes them blend a little. And then we'll do our scratching around on this one as well. And I'm not wasting this paper over here. Like I said, I will use this scratch paper and not throw it away. Heaven forbid I throw something away. This whole lockdown, quarantine for the pandemic, I have been a craft hoarder my entire life, I think. So now I'm being forced to use it instead of just hoarding it, which is probably a positive. You always got to look for a positive, right? Okay, so these are finished. I will decide where to put them in my journal. I will probably take and back around the back side, leaving the slit open, but putting glue around here and mounting it to some cardstock so that when I make this part a pocket, it doesn't catch on whatever is in this pocket. It'll be a backing to this pocket. And if that's confusing, watch for the video where I show you how I do that and it will all become clear. So there is my technique for my Artsy Fartsy cover and the 2 Artsy Fartsy pockets for my Wild Hare Kit's challenge journal. I thank you for joining me. I hope that you'll come back again as I continue to work in this. And please check out my other videos if you found this interesting at all. And I just want to remind you to be kind, always. Bye.